we came across some information about a potential federal bit license. You said bit license for New York City was the worst piece of crypto regulation ever, forced people out. There are some bad actors out there that are trying to push a federal bit license in order to make it where there's nothing decentralized that will be legal, because the decentralized exchange, like the ones on Cardano ecosystem, they can't get one of these licenses. That's one plan that's coming up. Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, he's behind that 100%. And so I've spoken out a lot about that stuff. But the fact is, even though that's a really, really bad plan, we do need some plan in crypto. And so in your trips to Washington, D.C., and your talks with senators and politicians, like, what do you think? I know we're kind of running out of time here. I know it's a big question to ask here at the end. But what is the current state of regulation when it comes to crypto? And what do you think is kind of the light at the end of the tunnel we can move towards something positive?
So Washington, D.C., it's cyclic. And what happens is that there are times when the gates are closed and there are times when the gates are open. In a politically divisive midterm year, the gates are closed. You can't pass major legislation because there's just, unless like a war happens or something. And even then, people are divisive. So this year was not the year to do legislation, actually sign a bill, unless everybody's pushing hard and the president is putting his entire political fortunes on the line. And even then, it's 50-50 and it's very controversial. But this is the year to talk about it. And that's what happened with the Financial Innovation Act, the Stab Now bill. There's the Digital Commodities Exchange Act, the Biden Executive Order, MiCA in Europe. Everybody's doing stuff. Everybody's talking about stuff. So the midterms, the way it looks right now, there's very high probability that the Republicans are going to retake the House of Representatives. The Senate, who the hell knows? It's one Fetterman away. We'll see where that falls. But in any event, it's divided government instead of unified government, and that means things have to be bipartisan or else they cannot be pushed through. Both the Republicans and the Democrats agree that regulation needs to happen. Where they disagree is on wedge issues that are probably not material to a lot of the things the layer ones worry about, except for the proof of work space. For example, environmentalism. You know, the introduction of the Department of Energy and the EPA into the mining process, as recommended by the White House report. So more likely than not, we'll see a strengthening of the CFTC, more resources going their way, and specific powers for them to deal with cryptocurrencies. What remains to be seen is, will they tinker with the definition of whether something is a security or a commodity? So in other words, will the Howey test be modernized in a little bit to accommodate the fact that facts and circumstances change? The people who created the Securities Exchange Act of 1933 and the Supreme Court that was responsible for interpreting it in the 40s for the Howey test couldn't imagine this idea that a digital asset could jump from one bucket to the other. They're paper. They're issued by companies. It's inconceivable. You'd have to know about the internet, and you'd have to know about digital tokens and these things. It's nuts to say that they would have conceived of that. But their argument was, well, you know, legislatures will legislate. They'll just create new legislation to update and modernize the bill. They didn't learn about the bipartisan way we do things in 2022. And so the problem is the legislative branch just hasn't done its job. The good news is I think they will do something. The jury is out on whether they will go reach deep enough in to help update and modernize Howey a little bit to give a bit more regulatory clarity. I do not believe that regulation through enforcement is reasonable or prudent. You're one bad commissioner away, one bad chairman away, to basically an endless debate that costs $100 million every time the clock ticks to get some semblance of clarity, and people can always disagree. And don't give me some bullshit that courts will create precedent. Roe v. Wade was supposed to be the law of the land. Every lawyer goes to law school, oh, that's an example of stare decisis, and then suddenly it's gone. Shit changes all the time, and courts are not beholden to the whims and wills or consequences of the day-to-day affairs. This is the point of the legislative branch. They put things in stone until otherwise. So it's very important that the branch does its job. So what we've been doing is engaging with people on both sides of the aisle and trying to get an understanding of where their mindset's at and have real discussions about things like consumer protections, disclosures, real discussions about what is decentralization and how do you measure it? How does that ball jump from one bucket to another bucket and back, and how do you create an agile regulatory system, as well as teaching them what other jurisdictions are doing? What is Switzerland doing with FINMA? What is the JFSA doing in Japan? What is Dubai doing with its complete regulatory overhaul? What is Europe doing with MiCA and so forth? That give them the knowledge and foresight that they need to try to balance out something that doesn't destroy the crypto industry and allows the industry to continue growing and is manageable. Now, we have to be intellectually honest. This is the industry that gave us Luna and BitConnect and OneCoin and these other things. So there are certainly fraud and scams and these other things. The reality is the vast majority of those can actually be prosecuted without any additional regulation. Fraud is fraud. Corruption is corruption. Insider trading is insider trading. Market manipulation is market manipulation. You don't need new law to say it's extra special evil. It's kind of like when you charge somebody who's murdered somebody with a hate crime. It's like, well, they're already going to jail for life. I was like, why do we need to extra super murder or something like that? It's like, okay, you can do it, but it doesn't materially change the outcome. So you don't need special legislation in that particular sense. You need special legislation when you're talking about new assets, new taxonomy, and this idea of assets that can become one thing and then another thing and so forth. And also, you have to leave carve-outs so that existing technology doesn't get banned. There's a very real possibility, if the legislation goes in the wrong direction, that DEXs and algorithmic stablecoins could be banned. There's a very real possibility that we may inadvertently have disclosure requirements that make stake pools illegal. There's a very real possibility that all of DeFi may get captured and forced to have licenses to operate, which obviously it can't, because who the hell would apply for it and be able to comply with it, even if they could apply for it? So TradFi's last death throes are certainly reaching out of the swamp and trying to drag DeFi in. And it's very important that we use this moment with some wisdom. The good news is that so far, engaging with people on the right and the left, they don't want to do harm. At least the reasonable ones. Not all of them. Some are crazy, but we always have had crazy people, let's be honest.
The crazy ones are the small percentage.
For the most part. They're like the also here votes. But that's okay. You know, you don't need all the votes. You just need a majority. And there's well more than enough that I think after the midterms, the dust will settle and something is going to get passed in 2023. And we're all trying to work together to get something passed that gives people the certainty that they need so that the layer ones can continue growing, people can launch new layer ones, people can continue to innovate, and dApp developers don't get regulated out of existence.
Yeah, I think all that's really great. And I think for the audience, I think for you guys to take away from this, Charles is fighting for this regulation to go a positive way. I'm fighting for this to go a positive way. But we're just, some people, right? We need more people fighting, more people looking at, calling your congressman, calling your senator, whatever it is. Like, people always say, I went over to Dubai and, like, how do you live in America? How things are so crazy over there with crypto and this and that. And well, you know what? My kids play baseball here. My kids go to school here. I don't want to leave America. I'm not going to. So we got to stay here and we got to fight and we got to make it better. Especially, I'm a one-issue voter in crypto. If you are for crypto, I'm for you. If you're against crypto in politics, then I'm against you. But we're a little bit of overtime here. Great job answering all the questions. I think people have been, very attentive to what you've been saying. This conference, obviously, Rare Bloom. Everybody give it up for Rare Bloom real quick. Yeah.